PNR with Adam R. Welcome to 3PNR. I'm your host, Adam R. And on me with me on this episode is John DeMuary. John, how you doing, sir?
Good. How are you today?
Good. Glad to have you on. Read a little bit about you. Your story started in tragedy and then developed its way into research and discovery. Is that about right?
Yeah, it about sums it up.
So getting involved with researching the paranormal, clearly you'd stated what put you on that path, but what got you researching it widely?
Well, for me, it started out with obviously a tragedy that happened with my parents dying. I think the very first paranormal experience I had was I was just laying in my bed, and a buddy of mine had spent the night, and he woke up at 3 a.m, which is oddly weird, and seen a figure sitting over me, caressing me. Now, I didn't see this figure, but I always wondered in the back of my head, then there were other things that happened. So initially, when I started doing my research and wanting to become an investigator, it was more or less because I was really interested to know if any of it had any meaning or if it was real. Not to mention, when you're doing this and you're starting out, it's kind of a rush because you just don't know what you're getting yourself into. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the excitement of it all.
Yeah. But for me, gradually, it became more of wanting to help not only the living, but also the deceased. It's not about just going to see if something exists, because obviously stuff exists everywhere. We know that. That's factual. But getting to know that on a different level, learning about that, what happened, what time frame they're from, are you stuck? Do you need help? What stuff like that.
Yeah, I speak to a lot of paranormal investigators and a lot of afterlife experts, and a common thing I'm finding is, again, to start from the beginning, we're all energy, right? Our brain is mostly energy. So I think, and this is what I'm learning. My train of thought is evolving the more I speak to people. Our consciousness is our soul, is how I'm interpreting this, right? And so when you pass, the energy your body leaves behind clearly stays behind. And when you have people who die in accidents or something instant, the soul or the energy tends to be left behind because there was no preparation time. It just stopped. And so yeah,
it's left behind.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that then it's confusion. You have the energy of a being around, and it's not quite sure what happened. It's really confused, right? There was no preparation. And if you listen to some of the...
No preparation.
Yeah, if you listen to some of the afterlife experts, typically people on their deathbed, they could see their relatives or people they know or something like that being inviting. When you pass instantly, though, no one's at the gates waiting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I usually explain it to people like this. Let's say that somebody comes up and just shoots you right in the back of the head. It's instant. It's quick. You don't know what happened. When the stuff that you're seeing around you also dies within your memories, so it's still there, and it'll always be there. As opposed to somebody that goes to a doctor, says, "Hey, I might have cancer." They check him out. Yeah, you've got 6 months left to live. They've got a chance to prepare themselves for that, to get everything that they need, all their ducks in a row, so that they're ready to move on.
Right. And there's no need for closure for that individual. That can't be said for everyone, though.
There's other things that I question, though, as well, while doing this, that I struggle with, that I'm still trying to find answers for, is, for instance, babies, children, they don't have baggage they left behind or anything. There's nothing. They're ready to go. They're pure. They're innocent. So why would a child be hanging around? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And in a lot of those senses, if you look at, some of the famous movies that have been done by actual fictional stories that were real, it's always been a child that has tried to earn their trust And at the very end, we obviously know that that child turned out to be a really bad demon.
Yeah. You know, I want to categorize the children in the same category of someone, say, murdered instantly. Right. When you're a child and you perish, I think if you are left behind, I think that's a lot of confusion. You know, imagine a child's state of mind, like, well, where am I? What's going on? Why can't anyone see? You know, and I imagine they would need the more help, like a murder victim. It's instant, and if you, like you said earlier, you get shot from behind, your soul's around, like, well, what happened? And then you're in this kind of loop, you're stuck. And those are typically the energies that want to hang around. Me, I'm a nostalgic person. I'm going to hang around. I'm going to be a jerk, no doubt. So
for sure.
So it's tough. It's a tough category. And I never really considered children, you know, under 5, because you're right. Their consciousness is limited. But then on the other side, how many energies or souls are reincarnated? And maybe they have a grander understanding on the other realm.
You know, and you're absolutely right about that, because that's another thing that I've been dealing with lately is I went and seen a psychic medium because I had some stuff going on and been having these reoccurring dreams that they seem so real, but you know it's not, but you're not really sure, because some days it's all you think about. And these places, these positions that you've been put into that seem so real, and you've done it. So when I had went and seen this lady, her name is Stephanie Cox, and she's here in Butte, Montana with me as well. You know, we met, she was super nice. She asked me about these dreams, kind of guided me and walked me through them. And then for the first time ever, I had my third eye open. And she had told me that I was a psychic myself, and I was a very strong one, which is cool, I guess. I'm still processing all of this. This is still fresh, but ever since that has happened, I have been seeing and hearing and having all these weird different senses go on that are just mind-blowing.
Well, yeah, you got to understand how powerful the brain is, man. I mean, the human brain, we don't use it at max capacity. And more often than none, do you hear about people in these crazy accidents where, like, a guy, car wreck, near death, he can play piano now at the master level. Couldn't before, doesn't even know how to read music, just play it. So we don't know the full potential of our minds. And there's a lot of people that meditate, and you could channel other realms, because what we are able to perceive and observe with our eyes is just a fragment of what's really around us. Just like, you know, an example would be everything you're seeing with your eyes, there's a delay. Your brain's still processing what you're looking at. Same being for light from space. When you look at the stars, you're seeing something very old, and it's just now traveling. And even that light, your brain's still processing that. You're not seeing it in real time as you might think. So,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Good.
What was that?
I was going to say, you know, all right, I guess let me put it this way. Some people are born with a powerful intuition. It might even be psychic. I talk to a lot of cops, a lot of detectives. I talk to a lot of investigators. Some people have what I call the Jordan factor, right? They just have it. And they're unaware that it's there. You know, not some of these detectives I talk to, they're really good about what they do. They just have an instinct. They always say the same thing. My gut told me about it. Well, what is your gut exactly? It's your mind focused. And when it's focused, you can process faster. So in what you're doing now, what cases are you working on currently that have you a little on the side of backing away from it?
So right now, my focus was at the Hummingbird Cafe, which is in Uptown Butte. And I don't know if you know much about Butte, Montana, but back in the 1800s, it was actually one of the biggest cities in the United States, because, I mean, the mines were booming with copper, and the Copper Kings came down and everything, and it was just huge. Presidents came down, and there's probably 15 to 16 brothels in this small town that I live in, and it's just very, very haunted. There's a lot of, you know, darkness here, and there's a lot of spirits, and I always tell people that move to Uptown Butte, which is the oldest part, that more than likely, it doesn't matter where you move, it's probably going to be haunted. So, yeah, with that being said, this one at the Hummingbird Cafe, there's something down there that is not necessarily like mean to me, but he's dark. He knows I'm there. We had a guy that was there the other day. He went downstairs to grab something out of the basement. He looked into the part of the basement that was dark and had the boiler in it. And he said he's seen these glowing red eyes just staring at him. When he came upstairs, and I thought this guy was going to have a heart attack. That's how terrified he was. He couldn't breathe. He was just terrified. So some of the videos that I have posted on my channel are videos that are just dealing with talking to this entity to find out who or what it is, why he's here. And from what I picked up is that place used to be a butcher shop as well. And the owner was an old man. He was roughly probably 270, 280, about 5'8". So, he wasn't in shape, but he was big, and he had a bald head. He was wearing a striped red and white shirt. He had coveralls on, and I was out and about in the Hummingbird. It's a cafe, by the way. And I had noticed that two ladies were speaking. One of them happened to be a practicing psychic, I guess. And she was talking to a lady about something she was dealing with. I didn't catch the conversation, but as I was coming back in and I seen the lady she was talking to, I said, "Oh, I heard you're a psychic." And she said, "No, I'm not. I was just asking questions." So she started asking me questions. Now, mind you, I've never met this lady in my life, so I don't know her and I don't know the other lady. And the questions that she was asking was on, stuff about paranormal investigation and stuff, and seeing signs if there's a spirit around. And I just blurted out, "Well, imagine yourself driving down the street and you see a big building and there's this writing on there that says something about listening to your husband's dead brother's wife." And the psychic lady looked at me and her jaw dropped, and I asked her what was wrong. And she said, "I'm going with that because that's what the lady was just talking about." So it's stuff like that I don't know how I knew that or why I said it, but I said it and it was accurate and it was kind of terrifying.
Yeah. Make room for the idea that, and again, I say this to people often, your brain's a transmitter at the end of the day. Like I said earlier, we don't use it to full capacity. When you're talking about energies, think about what an apparition is. It's manifested energy. It's not physical. And if it wants to translate something to you, it would have to do it almost at a telepathic level. If anyone needs proof of how we could hear sounds we otherwise couldn't hear, if you need proof of how the functions are, get a sinus infection and then hear any sound that otherwise you couldn't hear. And I promise you it'll affect you somehow. That's just the reality.
Right.
Also, John, when it comes to dark entities, specifically dark ones, we're humans. We learn things, right? As we go through life, we can learn other languages if we want to learn them. We could learn how to become builders or engineers. We're a learning species. Now,
right.
Put in your mind that this planet's 4 billion years old, give or take. And we don't know exactly what roamed around here 1 billion years ago. We could estimate the dinosaurs. There's a fossil record 65 million years ago, but I'm talking 2 billion years ago. There could have been,
right.
Who knows what existed here then, humanoid or otherwise. Right. In a darker era, and I'm assuming darker era, it's the beginning of the planet, they don't exactly have the same agenda as us, and they're around. So they're here in the energy form, and they learn from us. They hear us speak. They could observe us, right? So sometimes when I hear people talk about these darker entities and/or demons, this could be something that lived here long before, and it observes us, learns, and it learns how to manipulate. So I always exercise caution when I speak about the darker entities, because we don't know exactly what they are.
That's true.
That
is very true.
Yeah, I mean, consider that. This is a really, really old planet. And that's one of the things I like to do is I use my imagination. I'm like, well, I hear about the fossil record from the dinosaurs, but what was around before then? And some arguments are, well, it was inhabitable for us, maybe. We don't know how they were breathing. We don't know anything about their biology had they been here. And then the other question would be, well, where's the proof of that? Well, the only reason
Right.
we see dinosaur bones and sediment, those are large creatures, but there's a lot of things that lived here. There's no fossil record for, especially from billions of years ago. If it does exist, it's further down to dig than what we could find. And I assume that eventually we're gonna.
Right. Right.
So,
And I think that, a lot of people, I don't know, a lot of people, they might, be investigators because of the simple fact of what is really out there. I mean, we watch these movies, we watch these TV shows. Everybody has these ideas of what monsters or what spirits or what demons or what ghosts can be. And so they want to find out for themselves, what is on the other side, because it's inevitable. You live, you die, but when something stops, something else begins.
yeah. And for you, again, like we stated earlier, your story began with a tragedy. And then as a kid, when you're a kid and that happens, those tragedies will play on your psychology in the form of curiosity and emotion. And you don't know what you for all you know, you opened up an ability you didn't otherwise know you had. Maybe this is your calling. You don't. I predict in the next 5 years, we're going to know a lot more about the afterlife. It's gaining the interest of the public more than ever, and especially with the pandemic, right? And
Right.
the reason we have so many investigators, and like you said earlier about the questioning, is because what are we doing when we're investigating these things? Well, we're questioning our own mortality. That's really what it comes to. And we all want to know what's after this. And that's what sets us down that path. That's what has me asking the questions. What's after this? Before this podcast, my opinion on death was when we died, the lights went off in our computer upstairs, being our brain, and that was it. It was darkness.
Right.
I have evolved in a way I think since speaking to some of the afterlife people and the paranormal people and reading their cases, and then you start studying what energy really is, and it really makes you rethink things. And there's people like yourself.
Boy, don't. Yes, it does.
Yeah, I mean, you're out there looking. I mean, I didn't ever look. That's my problem. But that's the luxury I have right now speaking to people like yourself is I'm getting to learn. So for you, what equipment are you using currently?
So currently I have a lot of equipment. Right now I use a Connect. I use an SLS. I also use a box that's called the honeycomb box. And what that allows is it's a ghost box, and it just closes out that white noise sound, and you get a crystal clear comment, phrase, sentence from these spirits, these entities that are out there. I use a REM pod. I use two cameras that are night vision and infrared. I also use a thermal imaging camera. We have motion sensors. So there's a lot at our disposal. And the reason that I have so much is because, I usually tell the spirits that, these pieces of equipment are here so you can, use the energy off of it to respond. Sometimes I even use a flashlight to where I can get the spirit to turn it on and off for yes and no questions. And I always tell people, they're not on our time. We're on theirs. Like, if they want to perform for us, if they want to talk to us, they want to try to scare us, that's on them. If nothing happens, I'm not going to force it because I don't believe in that. We'll just come back another day. But a majority of the time, I would say 98% of the time, when I do go on an investigation, something always happens.
Yeah, you know what that is too, John. I've kind of had time to think about that. Now you have something that's in another realm. It could otherwise, no one else could see it really. However, there's this person coming around looking for them. And sure, they're like, well, wait, someone could talk to me? They're excited. They're engaging. Because me as a spirit, I don't know, man. I feel bad for a lot of people I know. I'm a pain in the ass. But the point I'm saying is, I require a lot of social interaction. So in my next existence, I imagine it's going to be the same. And then I try to imagine, what if I'm one of the ones that are stuck? I don't go to the light. I want social interaction. People like yourself are going to have to come deal with it.
Now, that's the question you got to ask yourself is when you do pass, do they see the light and do they still have free will to choose to go, or do they not? Or are they not meant to see the light? I haven't heard anybody not seeing a light and then decide to say, well, I thought I would just stay. They always get kicked out if it wasn't their time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I have some speculation on that. So again, I tend to evolve with the way I think, the more people I speak to, and some of the more science-minded people I speak to off podcast kind of gave me a theory. I personally think Earth, and this is what I think now after I learned, I think Earth is a proving ground. I think there are definitely other levels you could go to or parallels, whatever it may be. And if you, let's say you're a murderer here, you're not going to go to the blissful outcome with everyone else, right? You're going to get recycled.
Yeah, right.
And you get recycled, reincarnated, and you get another try. Try it again. You screwed up big time in that one. Or you might have unfinished business, and maybe that's some of the people like, well, I'm not done here. I have family, I have concerns. And that energy that you have, considerably your consciousness, will reject the light and then hang behind. And there's those souls that it happened instantly, and they don't understand the light, and they don't go to, or I'm saying light, but they don't understand what that outcome is, and they stay here in that state of confusion. And then flip side, you're a really good person. You've done amazing things here on Earth. We are going to recycle you because we need more of like you to be around to do it again. So there's those levels. That's the way that's along the line of where I'm thinking right now.
That could very, very well be possible too.
Yeah.
I said, the lady I talked to, she had told me I had been reincarnated several times, not to mention a psychic I had talked to by the name of Carissa Fleck had told me that a year ago, the same exact thing that this lady told me. And so, yeah, I feel like when I have these dreams that they're real, that it is something that I've done that, yeah. For instance, we were down in Hollywood 4 years ago for vacation. And I was meeting a buddy of mine down there. He was in you ever watch that movie Dead 7?
No, I don't think I have.
It's a zombie movie. It's super cheesy. It was with all the boy bands, but they did it here in Butte. I was a featured zombie. I made some decent friends and went down to visit one of them. And I was on Hollywood Boulevard. And for some weird reason, I knew my way around. I'd never been to Hollywood before in my life until that time, but I knew where I was going. I felt good about it. I was comfortable about being around all those people, which was weird because I'm not really comfortable with huge crowds.
Yeah, it makes sense. I have a strong draw to the ancient Greeks. I don't know why. I'm Puerto Rican Italian mixed. I have no Greek in me, but for whatever reason, I feel more, I identify when I watch like documentaries about the ancient Greeks or shows, I identify with that. And I have like this strange urge to live by the Mediterranean. So I don't know. I mean, you have to make room for a lot.
I understand what you're saying about that because I've been watching a lot of English shows, and I tell you what, I have that same sense.
Yeah, like
it's weird.
It makes more sense in that light for me, right? Or in that time, that realm, everything about it makes sense to me.
Yeah, because it feels like you're hungering for it, and it's like you want more of it, even though in this life you've never had it, but you feel like you have. So it's just like a hunger, and it's dragging you more towards it. You feel stuck because you want to get to that position again.
Right. Yeah. I hear that a lot with people. Like, I don't belong in this time. I hear that a lot. A lot of people tell me this. So for moving forward for you, we're going to talk Poltergeist. And what are your thoughts on those? And what are they? I mean, we talked earlier about what I said about this planet being old and those darker spirits, but in the back of my mind,
I think a poltergeist to me is a tragedy that had happened to several people that for one thing or another, their spirits hadn't been laid to rest. They could have been shallow grave murders, which happens a lot, especially in the town that I live in. Back in the day, when they were told to actually move the graves, all they did was move the headstones. So there's buildings upon buildings that are probably buried upon graves, and a lot of angry spirits, because back then nobody gave a crap about, oh, well, we should do this properly. You know what I mean? It was all about the mines and the money and the politics.
Yeah. I found that out recently, something really disturbing. And it didn't never occur to me because I never asked before, but what do happen to these grave sites that are, a couple hundred years old and they're not really important people? Turns out they recycle them. I was like, what?
Yeah, you're not joking. We had when they had the, what the hell was that pandemic that they had? It was a pandemic in the 1800s dealing with the lungs. I forget what it's called.
Spanish flu?
Not that, it was something else, but Doc Holliday had it.
Huh. I'll have to look it up, but in the long run, a lot of people died.
Yes, and so down here there's we call it the Cabbage Patch right now, and what it is it was a place where they would stick all the old people in these little shacks. And I'm telling you right now, the shack wasn't much bigger than my living room, and my living room is not that big. So imagine all these people in this shack that have this disease, or they're poor, or they're homeless, and then they're just left there and they're forgotten. And that's another place I go, is the Cabbage Patch, because there's a little girl by the name of Tess there that I always contact, who always tells me every time that there's an evil man that won't let her continue to speak. So, yeah, these graves, these people that died, they didn't care about them back then, because unless you were somebody that, was prominent in that era, you were nothing.
Right, yeah. When I first heard about that, recycling of graveyards and grave sites, I was blown away when I heard this. I could not wrap my head around. But then again, if you think about it, look at the population of the planet. Eventually, we're going to run out of real estate for burial. So it does make sense as generations pass. And I imagine they would call the families like, "Hey, man, we're gonna do this. You cool with it?" Like, these are great grandchildren. They're probably like, "Yeah, whatever." That's scary,
right?
But for Poltergeist, here's the other thing: no one ever really. I mean, I'm sure it's considered, but it's not spoken of widely. Serial killers. They die too. And some of them don't die according to plan. They're executed mostly, right? Or they die of disease in prison. Or some of them survive that were uncaptured. The point I make is these are the energies are going over too. And I'm sure, I promise, maybe, like I said earlier, they get recycled. Like, all right, you got to start over again. You're a jerk. or they decline either outcome and are just lingering behind. And I've spoken to some, if you hear the episodes where I talked to the homicide detectives, you could hear the personality shifts in these serial killers. Like, "Hey, man, what's up?" Talking like a regular person. And then they mentioned like a victim that got away, and his whole disposition went dark. Like, he got,
wow.
You could just, it's chilling to think about. Like, they completely swapped who they were in a second, because that something about that victim getting away, just the predator in them came right back to the surface. So now to consider what energies are running around out there that deny whatever parallel they're supposed to go to, and then you got to think that you're dealing with that,
right?
And
absolutely.
And these are manipulators. They could trick you to thinking they're a friendly person, but think about what a serial killer does. It lures people in, and then it ends their life. So, exercise caution with speaking to those things. Have you come across a lot of dark entities that you'd otherwise not want to deal with?
I have. I've come across a lot more dark than I have friendly, and I've come to accept that. There's a purpose, there's a reason for it. For whatever it is, I'm still just trying to move forward and do it, without any fear, because I don't care who you are. You go into a place and you're going to have some sort of fear because of the unknown of what it is. So I don't know why they're attracted to me, but that seems how it seems to be, at least here in Butte. But you run across good ones too that are just, bored or whatever. You get people that want their houses cleansed, and we go in and do that as well.
Yeah, we don't know what kind of strange loop they're in, right? I mean, like, you could meet the man who lived in his house, and he just doesn't want to be bothered. He wants to be in his home. New people move in. He's a jerk to them because it's his house. The investigator comes, mind your own business, and he's going to be aggressive as he would be in life. Why are you in my home? Right.
Right. And another instance for a poltergeist can go along the lines with what you're saying. If, a guy lived there for 40, 50 years, he died, it's his house, it's his property. He's pissed if somebody moves in. So maybe he's just trying to get him out. And that is also considered a poltergeist, because usually when they do that, they'll throw shit, they will turn TVs on, they'll make it pretty miserable for a person to want to live there. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then you get into the physical aspect of it where they actually start getting physical with you.
Yeah. And when they're getting aggressive, again, it's either the guy or the girl, whomever it may be, like, what are you doing here? This is my space, or this is something like,
right.
a deceased serial killer who that's their intention. And because they can't, when people tell me that they're being touched by spirits and apparitions, it's whether it's benign or an aggressive spirit, it's going to feel the same. It has to manipulate energy to touch you. And in either case, it's not going to be pleasant in either case, period.
No.
I read this story on the Tampa Bay Paranormal Society. It's like a Facebook group. It's like I don't know, maybe a year ago when I first started thinking about doing a podcast. I got in these groups, and it was talking about a kid. And I think so. In the beginning of the story, they're like, they feel bad. His kid doesn't get anywhere, but it turns out this kid he's in his house, going in his room, playing with his toys or doing whatever. And to him, there's nothing wrong. He's not sad. He's not angry. He's just doing his normal routine day to day. I hear that a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, when a person dies like that and those memories die with them, they're continuously doing the same things. It's like, you ever seen the movie The Others, where Nicole Kidman and her family are in this house and they think they're being haunted, but actually it's the other way around. They're the ones haunting the real people.
Yep.
They just don't know, because if you died in the 50s, you're seeing everything still in the 50s because that's what you choose. That's your ego. That's the flesh saying, I want all of that to still stay with me. I don't want change. And so they're constantly seeing that. I investigated a place in Uptown Butte. It was actually the old Butte jail, which at the time was a coffee shop. And I was downstairs in the basement. And the only activity I got was an EVP, and it was of a cell door slamming. And there's no cells down there. So it's all energy.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, me personally, John, I've never witnessed anything, no UFOs, no ghosts, nothing. And I'm under the impression that I'm either unlucky or they just don't like me. And I really try.
So where are you? Where are you from right now? Where are you at?
I'm in Tampa, Florida. And this place is, Florida, crazy house. UFOs, ghosts, Bigfoot, snakes, mosquitoes.
My son's wife lives in Orlando.
Yeah, everything happens in Florida. I was, I'm going to be doing a documentary, and I was going to start in Florida. But the problem is, if I start in Florida, I'll be here 5 years. Everything happens here. I'm going to have to make this my last stop on the way home, because it's crazy. I
gotcha.
Yeah, you name it. Everything, like, legit. I've never, and before the podcast, what got me into podcast, by the way, is that the 2017 UFOs, the government,
just released. Oh
yeah. That when I saw those videos, I was undeniable. There's UFO. What are they? No idea, but they're there. And then the pandemic rolls around, and I have all this time to sit around and watch documentaries, exciting stuff or whatever, just to get your mind off the pandemic. And then I decided to do a podcast. I want to start talking to people. I want to start finding out more what I could find. And
that's awesome.
And Florida, man, my God, this place, everything happens here, everything. So,
yeah, I've lived a crazy life, and the craziness has brought me to what I do now, and I love it. I love the fact that I can help people. I love the fact that I can help spirits, and I love the fact that I can talk to different people as well.
Yeah, it's not 9 to 5, man. I am under the impression, by the way. So I'm going to be speaking to someone on podcast. He's like a bit of a genius when it comes to inventions. Anyhow, he wants to introduce new equipment to locate and detect spirits. And I think what he's talking about is going to be a game changer. because he's approaching it completely different. He's not even looking at it from the same point of view. I'm not going to go. I'm going to wait for him to come on and get in more detail. But let me assure you, when you're researching them now, this will step it up a bit. And one of the things that I had a drawback for, I was like, why are they always hunting for these in the dark? Why are they always in night vision? And I was skeptical until I talked to some more paranormal people and find out, well, at nighttime there's less ambient noise. And in the dark,
right,
your vision's not distracted on other things. You're focused on what it is you're there to see. So that made a lot of sense to me.
Right.
But in any sense, moving forward, where do you want to go? I mean, if you could pick anywhere to investigate, any case to touch, what would it be?
Oh boy, there's when I'm watching some of these paranormal shows on TV, like Ghost Adventures, stuff like that. A lot of them have the same stuff, but one of the places, two places actually, and one of them is a place, and one of the things I want to investigate is at a place. So the first place I'd want to do is I'd want to do the Amityville house. I'd want to spend 24 hours in there with a team, see what happens. Just to, because I've read the book, I've seen the movies, and I want to see the experience. I know it's scary. I know these guys had terrible experience. The families in that house do. But I want to see how strong my mind is going up on that stuff. Another one would be Annabelle, the doll, to sit down and have an EVP session. Be respectful, because if you're not respectful to that doll, it will kill you. And I don't know if you've read up on that doll or anything, but there's been instances where people have gone to see that doll at the museum and have disrespected them and ended up dead 2 hours later.
Wow. You're the fifth person to mention that doll, by the way. I'm going to have to research. I don't know enough about it, but I am going to look it up now. I mean, it's pretty consistent.
Yeah.
That's creepy. My God, that creeps me. I don't like dolls to begin with. I'll be honest, man. I just don't like them.
Either. Trust me. I don't like them either, but I think they're interesting. And I actually had my buddy from Utah. He's a huge investigator as well. He came down here, brought his possessed doll that somebody had given to him because it was too bad and it was just doing too much crazy stuff. Gave the doll to him, and so he brought it here, and I had my thermal imaging camera on it. Now, thermal imaging camera, it detects heat. So it's detecting heat just perforating off this doll. And then I turn the camera and put it right back on the doll, and the spirit is gone. Like, the doll is cold. And I said, get your ass back in that doll. And 2 seconds later, it was there. So, yeah, dolls are creepy, man.
Yeah, I don't separate the ghosts. They just stare. I remember being a kid, and my sister had dolls, and they would just stare. They used to drive me nuts. Couldn't stand it.
I remember my aunt telling me a story. She said she had a Cabbage Patch doll that tried to kill her, and from that point on, I was like, yeah, I'm cool with all that.
And then your kid and Chucky comes out, and you're confirmed.
Yeah, right. Yep, there it is.
That's
funny.
There was a doll that Chucky thing was based on. I can't remember the name of it now. It was
Robert the doll.
Was it Robert the doll? Yeah, it was like something where it was like your friend or whatever. And yeah, that's creepy, man.
I got a funny story about Chucky. Let me just tell you this.
Sure.
So I'm friends with the kid who played Andy Barkley from the original Child's Play. And so my daughter's a huge Chucky fan. And a couple years ago, I bought her both the dolls, and, we had a party for her, and she's seen the dolls, and she freaked out, started crying, terrified of it. 15 minutes later, she comes up and says, Dad, can I just hold him? And it was over from there. So I had ended up meeting Homeboy and, asked him if he could send my daughter an autographed picture, and he made a cool video for her and everything, man. It was the sweetest thing.
Well, that's great. You know who I really want to meet?
Who's that?
There's from that movie The Conjuring, The Real Woman. I forgot her name.
Oh, the real woman.
The real woman. I want to talk to her. I really do. Because recently,
there should be a way that you can get a hold of her.
I'm going to reach out to her. One way or the other, I'm going to reach out to her. So I read her interview, And her interview bothered me more than the movie. Way more. Like, I feel like the movie, I feel like, and it's the sad part about Hollywood. They try to sensationalize it, right? Make it more exciting. But when you read her interview and the details she pours in that interview, that's more chilling than any visual effect you're ever going to get, ever. Because now you're talking about the unknown in your home, and it's creepy. It's pestering. And I think that troubles me more than I'm an odd guy, man. You'll learn this about me over time. As a kid, I was one of those weirdos that ran into the problem. I'm the guy that dies in the movie. First chapter, every time. Yeah. Because as a kid, we're by a lake as a kid, sneaking out of the house in the middle of the night, things kids do. And my friends look over this lake and where the moonlight is, and they're swearing to God they see these stick figures walking around. And no thoughts. I ran right to it. Ran right over there. To my disappointment, nothing there. The point is, it's not till afterward is when you're afraid. Like, what the hell did I just do?
Right. Yeah, I do the same thing, man. I run right towards it, and I don't even think about it.
Yeah, because I got to know.
No, I get it.
I got to know.
We would definitely be the first people dead. I promise you that in a horror movie.
That's why. So when I do this documentary, eventually I'm going to get out probably towards the mid to tail of next summer. I'm building this network with people like yourself, the ufology people. I mean, everywhere I go is going to be a stop. Bigfoot, UFOs.
So are you going to travel to these different states then? Is that your goal?
That's the goal, the whole country. And eventually I'll get into the world part, but until COVID comes out, that's kind of off the chart.
Well, so I'll tell you what, you'll probably get a hotel when you come here, but you got free meal and everything because I manage a restaurant too. So
awesome. I'll drop in on you, man. Listen, I'm not, when I say I'm going to go to the spots, man, I mean every word of that. I'm going to go to the spots and I'm going to film and I'm going to stay out there at night and whatever I got to do, because before I depart from this world, I got to know. So far,
I don't blame you.
Yeah. So far, UFOs, the idea of them being unidentified objects, 1,000% they're real. What's behind the controls? I still have no idea.
I mean, you want to hear something even spookier? Sure. I mean, think about the pandemic, which started in 2019. During that year alone, there were more UFO sightings than any other point in history just in that year alone. And NASA found 11 black holes together. Now, we don't know a lot about black holes, but we think that it could be a possible way of transportation from
like a portal
from point A to point B.
Yeah,
holding space and time.
Do you know what makes me...
So during the pandemic...
Go ahead. No, you go. I have that bad habit. Go ahead, man.
Oh, you're good. So, think about it this way. All those sightings during a pandemic, why do you think the aliens would be here? Because they were wondering how we would react to something that small, which I'm not saying COVID-19 is small, but it's not like the Spanish flu or anthrax or any of that stuff. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Listen,
so they were studying.
I think we're under a long-term study, by the way. So everything you're saying lines up with what I think.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
wow. Yeah.
The pandemic, and they're seeing what's happening, no doubt. They're watching. How do they react? What's the outcomes? Did they survive this? I say this to a lot of ufology people. I'll say it to you. If we're walking through a park and we see an ant pile, because, typically you hear us compared to ants when it comes to aliens. I think it's nonsense.
Right.
If you see an ant pile, they're driving cars and they're flying planes and they're blowing each other up, you're closing that park off to watch them indefinitely. You want to see how things work out. So,
right.
That being said, yeah, that was an interesting part of their study. Just like Skinwalker Ranch. I think what ended up happening at Skinwalker Ranch and other places around the globe that are like it is something else is watching us at a higher intelligence, happen to notice an apparition in the background while watching us. I was like, what the hell is this? And don't set up shop. I think that's what I think. I personally think Skinwalker Ranch and other places like it are large study grounds for higher intelligence. And that's why you see all the abnormalities, because they're doing experiments as they're watching in those places, which explains why the technology is always compromised when they're trying to film this stuff. So,
right.
I make room for a lot,
there's definitely a couple places in Montana where there'd been a couple sightings, and I know that they're guarded by the government. I'm not exactly sure where, but I talked to a guy that was in the military that was debriefed on some of that stuff.
I'm going to tell you, man, this week, actually, I have Steve Murr coming on. He's a paranormal specialist. There's a lot of parallels between UFOs and ghosts. A lot. An incredible amount of, a lot of things similar. Possession and abduction, I see a lot of similarities there. I mean, the orbs in both cases, they seem to be in both cases. Personally, my belief system that the orb it's like a drone. It's like doing recon work. And because they're the one few things that when they get FLIR image of it, it gives off a heat signature, which I find odd.
It does too. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, if you think what that is, that's actually a physical thing, and it's always there. It's benign, does its job, and it pisses off. So I have to believe in my heart of hearts that that's a drone of some sort for them, or something to recon the area anyhow. Anyway, John,
crazy.
Before we close out, is there anything you want to add?
No, just, thanks for having me on your podcast. It's pretty exciting, pretty fun.
Yeah,
I like talking about this stuff, and I definitely love meeting new people. I'd love to meet more new people, like-minded people that are just like that are not living in the box and that have a good understanding and a good heart of how to treat others and whatnot.
Well, yeah, man, you have to approach everything with no filters on. I'm one of those. I don't think any information is bad. You just got to learn how to filter. You can't approach things with blindfolds on, man. Or else you're going to miss something. And it's not worth having some set state of mind so you miss something. What's the name of your YouTube channel, by the way?
It is The Real Paranormal, and I guess what's different from this, because I've watched a lot of YouTube channels, is everything is unfiltered. I mean, I'm me. I am who I am. I'm not going to change for anybody. I believe in the cause. I believe in what I'm doing, but I also believe that I want people to see exactly what I'm seeing and to feel what I'm feeling. So usually I do about 5 or 6 videos throughout an investigation, and I post one right after the other. So if I just seen something 2 minutes ago, well, you guys are going to see it within the next 3 minutes if you're watching it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. I say that too with the documentary I'm going to do. It's either going to be really boring or something's going to happen, or I see something that's there, I run to it, and that's the last time anyone hears from me. But I got it on film. So that's my approach, man. Anyway, John, it has been a pleasure, my friend. I will get everything into details for you now. I know we're going to do this again. I'm sure of it.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic. You have a good night, sir.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Take care.
Yeah.